a surprise for you today. I have the privilege of interviewing none other than Dean Holland himself, CEO of Internet Profits. Let's go. Dean, thank you so much for accepting to be here with me and being interviewed by me. Thank you so much. Welcome to my channel.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, I'll turn it around. Thank you for giving me the chance to be here. So looking forward to share as much as we can in the time we have.
Oh, exactly. Well, it's just amazing for me, Dean. I mean, you've been my mentor for like just over a year now. I've learned so much from you. I absolutely love your company, your attitude, your everything you share. So honestly, it really is an honor for me to spend a bit of time with you, and also for my audience to get the chance to hear, I speak a lot in very good terms about you when I talk about the product, but to have you here, that I think my audience will see for themselves what a great person you are. So it's amazing.
Oh, wow. I'm going to be blushing. Well, I want to turn it around on you as well, because as you well know, and I'll share with your audience, you are one of those people. I obviously work with a lot of different people and many customers and clients, but admittedly, there's a lot of people that perhaps their actions don't necessarily match their words, but you are somebody that's just constantly an inspiration, not just to me, but to everybody else in our community, because you really do put in the effort and the work. And, so I just want to thank you, actually, not just for giving me the opportunity to be here, but of course, for inspiring everybody in our community as well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Then it's my turn to blush then. But listen, Dina, I wanted to dive straight into a few questions. I see a lot of people struggling online, a lot of people, who are kind of getting discouraged. And I wanted to ask you, Dean, about your story. I mean, was it all easy when you first started, or how did it go? Tell us a little bit more about how it went at the beginning.
Sure, yes. Well, I thought it was going to be easy. Let's start there. Much like, I'll be the first to say, I didn't actually turn to the internet because I didn't think, okay, I want to be a millionaire or be rich and I'm going to go online and learn how to do that. For me, I was actually in just a regular bar job as working in a pub here in the UK. And sadly, I was on very little wage. I finished high school at 16. I didn't go on to college or anything. And so unfortunately, that meant that I was, kind of taking whatever jobs I could, whether it was, I was a server, a waiter in a restaurant at one stage. I worked in a wood building factory where I put together furniture, kind of like building IKEA furniture. I did that. I worked then in a pub, in a bar. And, the thing is, when I ended up working in the pub, I was about 18, 19 years of age at that point, and my friends were coming into the pub enjoying their evening. That was their social time on a Friday or Saturday. And there I was working, serving my friends drinks. And so I was in this horrible situation. I was like, oh, I want to go and have fun with my friends. And so that's what kind of was the catalyst. I took to the internet, looking for ways to make some extra money. And that just really uncovered a whole new world that I just didn't even know existed. Back then, my understanding of people making money on the internet was selling some goods from around the house on eBay. That was the extent of what I thought was there. And so it really was quite exciting, I'd say, quite mind blowing when I started to see that there was all these ways of making money online. And I think my issue is that I was relatively young. I was rather swept away by some of the things I was reading. And, admittedly, looking back now, I fell for a lot of things and I was a bit naive. And, I really did just start, I went from consuming a lot of free information, reading blogs and articles and forums to, eventually thinking, oh, well, perhaps to get access to the good information, I need to pay for it. And so I started to buy products, and the more products I would buy, the more different directions it would tend to pull me in. There was nothing that was always the same. There was always a different way or a better way or a new way. And the more I was buying, I would say the worse the situation became, because as you will know, and as perhaps a lot of your viewers will know, when you buy something, generally you end up on that person's email list. And so you start getting emails off one more person added to the other 50 that you're already getting emails from. And as the time went on, I think it would be fair to say that, I started online, not in any debt at all. I didn't even have a credit card. I just simply wanted to make a bit of extra money. And the pursuit of trying to make some extra money actually landed me by about the age of 23 years old. I had over $60,000 of debt. I had 5 credit cards. I had 2 bank loans because I got a loan to clear the credit cards. Then I used the credit cards again. Then I got another bank loan, cleared them again. And then at that point, I literally, no banks, no credit card companies, nobody would touch me. Nobody would come near me to give me any more credit. And so that was my first 4 years online. And so this was now, I think 2008 was the real low point in my life. Like I say, before my mid-20s, so I'm in my early 20s at that point, I thought I was going to make lots of money online, just like all the websites said. But all I'd done was lose money, get into a lot of debt. And admittedly, and I share this and I'm open about this because if there's anybody watching and listening, I really want this to be a point of inspiration, perhaps, that things can change, things can turn around. Because after 4 years and all that debt and all that loss, not only had I lost all that money, I hadn't even got one sale, not one commission. I didn't even get lucky in that 4 years. Wow. And I think the truth is I was so ashamed of the mess I'd gotten into because my parents, they're quite, I guess, level-headed people in the sense of my mum was always more of the belief, if you can't afford it, you don't have it. You don't use credit cards. That was how I was raised. My mum still to this day and, doesn't have a credit card. And so I didn't tell them, so I was actually living back with my mum at this point. And I was starting to get really, really afraid because banks were calling her home phone, trying to chase me. We even at one point had like debt collection people visiting my mum's house. So it got to a really, really bad situation. And eventually I just couldn't hide from it. It really just kind of got to the surface. Everybody all of a sudden knew that I was in an absolute financial mess. And that was my first 4 years. So there's nothing glamorous about that, I can tell you.
But, Dean, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm almost happy that, of course, now, because it all ended well. But what I mean is, sure, I don't rejoice that you had this struggle, but I think it's something, the truth is that most people struggle, right? And I think some gurus will never admit to that and make it sound as though, you can go from 0 to 500,000 in 20 minutes, scratching your nose kind of thing. But the reality is it's not like that for many, many, many people. And I think that's what makes your story so inspirational, really. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then, so really what I take from this is there's hope, right? For anyone watching this, even if you really stuck, there is hope because Dean changed it all around. You just suddenly one day you just did something, didn't you? That changed things for you. What was that?
Yes. So luckily for me, one of the people that I had bought products from over the years, and I was on their email list. I just so happened, I remember it perfectly. I don't know why, because my memory is not always that great, but this I remember. I was actually at my day job. I was working at a construction company at this point, and I just so happened to see an email. You see the subject line, see the name and the subject line, and usually on the screen there's about 30 or 50 different subject lines. Well, just one of them happened to catch my attention, and it said, "Meet me in London, I'm paying." And I was so curious about that because I live maybe about a 3-hour drive from London, so it's not worlds apart from where I am. So I opened it, and it was basically an invitation to an internet marketing seminar near Heathrow Airport in London. And I didn't even, like, today I know events happen and they're very, very popular and very common. I didn't even realize these things happened back then. And so I saw this invitation, and essentially the guy that was sending the email said, for the first 10 people that reply, I'll get you a ticket to the event and you can actually come here and I'll meet you and, hopefully give you some advice. And I was, I could tell you the longer version of this story, which involves me not hitting reply right away because I was terrified. I was scared of even going and putting myself in that situation. Having an interview like we're doing now and talking, I wasn't that guy all those years ago. I was extremely introverted and extraordinarily shy. I'm still to this day, I'm quite a loner. I'm not somebody with lots of friends. I'm quite an antisocial person in many respects. And back then, gosh, I probably wouldn't have dared even speak in a room of people. You know, I would have been the guy in the corner, in the shadows, out the way. But I went to that event, long story short. And for the first time in all these years, I got to see, not on a computer screen, but I got to see real people. The people I'd seen on the computer, I'm now looking at them in this room. And it was so bizarre. And that was like a real, just eye-opening experience that actually, you know, because I'd grown quite jaded, I will say. You can imagine, can't you? As I'm sure a lot of people can. After years of struggle, you start to question, you know, what's wrong with me? Is this even real? Have I been completely fooled? You know, all these doubts and questions. And for the first time in my life, it became real, because now these were just people like me. And I did speak to one or two of them, and they were extraordinarily normal, if that can be a thing. And as a result of going to that event, the person whose email I replied to, it just so happened to be that about 4 weeks or so later, he was opening his own coaching program. It was his first ever coaching program. And, you know, he was somebody I'd followed for several years. And it was a very tough decision, is the first thing I want to be clear on, because after all that debt, I think it was, you have to excuse me, I think it was about $1,000. I can't recall exactly, but I think it was $1,000. And I just had enough left on one credit card left to get into this, but that was going to be it. And so that's what I did. I joined that coaching program, and it was a 6 or 8 week program. And you had a once a week call for about 3 hours a week. And he would just basically tell you, this is the next thing you've got to do. And then you'd have a week to go and do it. And so that was the turning point. Thankfully, I literally, within less than a year of that, I was quitting my job. And that was in 2009. And, you know, 13 years on, we're having this conversation.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yes. And now, I mean, you have 2 thriving multi-million businesses, right? If I'm not mistaken. You have 2 Combo Club awards. I mean, it's amazing, really.
Yes, yeah, so, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it is.
It's. I know. I often hear you say this. You can't quite believe it still, and I can see that you really can't believe it sometimes. But I'm just, and I'm in awe, because you still. It's like you really still remember how it is in the beginning, don't you? And that makes it amazing, you know. So
yes, yeah, definitely. Well, to be honest, the reason I've still, like you just said there, I always say I can't believe it, because I still remember so clearly. You know, I actually have behind me, I won't take time picking them up, I actually still have a big stack of credit card statements where I was being chased for debt. I have them here because I look at them all the time to remind me, you know, wow, you know, I'm stood in my office. I remember opening these letters and being so scared, you know, and they're literally just behind me over there. Wow. You know, and I do think, you know, a lot of people change when they grow successful. I've seen people talk about, oh, you have to, you know, to be successful, you have to change your friends, and you have to change who you hang out with, and all these things. And, you know, I can see, in one respect, I can see why people say it, because I do believe people are influenced by what's going on around them. You know, if you hang out with somebody that's always sad and negative, eventually you'll probably feel a bit negative yourself. So I understand it. But me today, I still have the same friends I had 20 years ago. I'm, you know, just everything's still normal to me. I just have a little bit more freedom and a few more options in my life, is how I see it. Exactly that. And you're helping so many other people, you know, because, well, I'm part of these, and I see what you do in both your groups and in all your fantastic program. I mean, it's just great. So that's just amazing. And by the way, I did want to remind my viewers that if you want to learn from Dean himself, you can click the first link below this video, and you'll be on your way. You can get Dean's free book, which are absolutely packed with value, right? and I don't know. I wanted to ask you, Dean, do you feel that there's one greatest achievement? Is that book, that very famous book you wrote, you know, Internet, The Iceberg Effect? Is that your greatest achievement, or is it something completely different that I haven't thought of at all? Oh, goodness, that's a good question. Something I can't say I've really thought too much about in terms of greatest achievement. Well, I think I can say there's been several really pivotal things that I've, you know, at the time really stood out as, you know, seemingly little things looking back. But, you know, I remember, for example, I put on an event for the very first time, and I was so scared because I didn't think anybody would come. And somebody has me on camera and I'm shaking. I came down, and because even up until the day, I didn't know how many would be there because we offered free tickets. And I remember opening the door and there was about 180 people in this room. That was a big moment for me because I was so terrified that nobody would be there. So I remember that being a big moment. But there's been several, speaking at Funnel Hacking Live, Russell Brunson asking me to speak there. And I remember the day I saw the size of the stage and how many people were there. It was 3,000 or 4,000 people, were there. And I was like a little ant stood on the stage, like a tiny little creature just crawling around on this huge arena. But, there's lots. But I would say one of them, if I pinpointed one, there was something I was very proud to be in a position to be able to do about 6 or so years ago. My wife was working in her day job. She's not involved in what I do. But she was having a really horrendous time. She was being mistreated in her job, and just very, very bad things were happening. And she came home one day and she'd phoned me that lunchtime and she was in tears on the phone. And this wasn't the first time it happened. And before she came home, I wrote a letter of resignation to her boss. And I gave it her in an envelope. And I said, if you want to, hand that to your boss tomorrow and we'll figure something out. And she opened it, and the next day she quit her job. And, then we've sort of, got to start her a little business. Like you've just said, we've got a few businesses now. And, 6 years on, my wife has her own, £1 million plus per year business. And that was something that always stands out because it's nice. For me, this is a lot of what this is about. It's like, what does it give you the options and the abilities to be able to do in your life, and to be able to do stuff for others, and to, give others that helping hand. That is something that I've, been very proud of, because that's one of the things I strive to do. If you read my first blog post that I published in 2008, one of the first paragraphs says, I want to be able to build a business and I hope to be able to help other people do the same. So thankfully it happened.
Oh, it's amazing. It's kind of like almost going to make me cry because it's so nice and so, just so amazing. And I'm so happy. I know that your wife is on TikTok and she's got all these great cosmetics, and I follow her, and I'm so happy because there's nothing worse, I think, than being very unhappy in what you do every day. I think that's awful, isn't it? It's just, I've had my fair share of mind-numbing jobs which I hated, and it's awful, isn't it? It just really is. So that's wonderful. Dean, thank you so much for sharing this. I was wondering, my next question on my little list is, I hear quite a few people who are doubtful. One of the big questions is, well, is it still possible to make money with affiliate marketing? Isn't it too saturated? Aren't there too many people doing this? Now, I always say, of course it's possible, but obviously I don't, have quite the same weight as you have. Do you agree with me? Is it still completely possible, or should people just forget about the whole thing?
Yes, no, it's a great question. It's a very valid one because a lot of people do feel this way. But the reason I was smiling as you was even saying it, because there's always something that comes to my mind that I'm so glad I didn't listen to. About 14 or so years ago, somebody messaged me in a popular internet marketing forum, or it's certainly popular back then, and they saw a post that I'd written, and they messaged me and they said, look, I want to, and I'm paraphrasing, but they essentially said, I want to save you the trouble. I've been trying affiliate marketing for years, and I found out that it's oversaturated and it's not possible for people anymore like us to do it. I recommend you find something else. And this was when I was struggling. This was when I couldn't do it as well. So I was very impressionable about that sort of message. And I got to tell you, it certainly planted a seed in my mind. It almost validated to me. This was almost a validation of, this is why I've been struggling, because it's oversaturated and it's not possible anymore. That's why I've been struggling. And I almost immediately believed what was being said to me because I'd been struggling myself. And I think when you are struggling, it becomes very easy to believe something like that because it justifies, like, oh, this is why I've been stuck. This is why it hasn't worked for me, because they're telling me it's oversaturated. And why would they be saying this if it wasn't true, right?
Yeah.
And thankfully, I was perhaps a little bit naive to listen. Thankfully, I was a bit stubborn and a bit pig-headed, perhaps. And I thought, no, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to do it. Even if you can't, I'm going to figure it out. And thankfully, I did. And, after all these years, I realized first and foremost that I know this might be quite controversial, but I don't actually believe in the ideology of something being oversaturated, because that's to say that nobody else can do something. Nobody else can be different to other people. Nobody can bring something new. It's like saying, why does anyone bother making televisions anymore? There's plenty of them. Why does anyone keep building houses? That market's oversaturated. Well, the reason those things still continue to happen is because every day, people that don't have a home begin to search for a home. They reach a point in their life where they now want to progress their life. Maybe they were living with parents and now they want a home. Maybe they were renting and now they're looking to buy and settle down. Well, it's the same with affiliate marketing. If it was only the ever same people that were in affiliate marketing, then sure, maybe there would be an oversaturation. But every day around the world, there are perhaps, I dare say, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of new people every day that wake up on a given day, just like I did, just like you did, and just like your listeners did, where we say, you know what, I'm not happy with my situation. I'm going to look to see what I can do about this. And so every day, I just don't buy into this idea that something can become oversaturated, especially when every day that market is replenishing itself. Yeah. It's growing continually. And if we look at the time the time in life or society that we're in now, right? I mean, it's no secret that we're perhaps in a time in the world where we're maybe heading for a recession, or maybe bad things are already happening. Well, I'll remind everybody, if you think about the story I shared at the start, it was 2008 where I finally started making money. And it was 2009, 8 months later, where I left my job. During the last probable worst financial crash in the world that I recall. So exactly. Isn't that fascinating that we're upon one of those times again? And here's why I highlight that, because if anybody's worried about being oversaturated, let me assure you that this is actually one of those times where this industry is about to boom, because more and more people are going to realize that the situation they find themselves in is not providing the lifestyle that they want, and they're going to seek what to do about it. And who better to be able to guide them than people like yourself, people like anybody watching and listening to this, who's got one or two steps ahead of those people that tomorrow are going to start looking.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. You're absolutely right. So, and at the end of the day, we don't need millions of people buying from us either, do we? So it's great. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. And like I say, there's the way I view it is there's more than enough for everybody. I'm sure some people are a little bit more ambitious or greedy, or, they want everything for themselves, but there's more than enough in this world to go around. And I think everybody's different. If somebody listened to me about advice about an online business, then that would be great. That doesn't mean they can't get great value from listening to you. And it doesn't mean they couldn't go and get great value listening to dozens upon dozens of other people. We are all different. We all have a bit of individuality to us. And sure, we might have similar concepts, similar ideas, similar beliefs, but the way in which you would teach something to somebody may slightly differ from the way I would teach it. And here's the great thing. You and I could actually say the exact same thing, give the exact same advice word for word. Some people would prefer to hear it from you. Some people might resonate and prefer more to hear it from me. So what a boring world it would be if there was only a small number of people that we could listen to.
100% agree with you. Absolutely. And I see this on YouTube. There are so many channels that are very similar. But as you say, we will have our own voice, our own style, and there's room for all these channels. And that's what's so wonderful. So, yeah, thank you so much. Dean, I've got a few more questions I wanted to ask, if I may. I mean, sure. I was thinking, if you were to start all over again, what would you do differently? What would you, I mean, you don't have to give all your secrets away, of course not. But, I see again, many people struggle, say, I don't know where to start, And I'm thinking, well, would there be one piece of advice that you could give people, or generally, how, if you were to start again, how would you do it this time? Do you think you could answer that, or is it difficult?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe this answer might not be the specifics of what people would like to hear, but if you think back to what I shared about my first 4 years and how terrible that was, if I could go back and do that again, I would do what I did in 2008 from the very beginning. I would realize that I probably need a bit of expert guidance and help because I don't know what I'm doing. And I would spend a little bit of time, or as long as necessary, to do research to find somebody that was doing what I wanted to do, that was getting the results I wanted in the way that I wanted to get them, somebody I could relate to, somebody that I felt that was my kind of person that I would like to learn from. And then I would, if I needed to save up or whatever it would take, I would spend my time getting myself in a position to learn from that person. And I'm not just talking about freely reading their stuff or watching their videos. I would be doing that anyway. But if I were to start again, I would very quickly get to the point of realizing that having a coach or a mentor that has been there and done it is just the fastest path to get where you want to be. And I at the time, I can safely say, because I know people listening might say, oh yeah, of course you'd say that. But quite frankly, whether it's me or anybody else, just I can safely say after all these years, I'm only 37 years of age. 17 of those years I've been online doing this stuff, so almost half my life. So this comes from a place of I've lived it and breathed it, and I've met many of the people you read about online. A lot of them are acquaintances, friends. Believe me when I say I've yet to meet somebody that stands there and says, I figured this all out on my own without help. I've not yet met one in 17 years. And when you consider every other area of life, right? If one of your children said, I want to be a doctor, you wouldn't for 1 second expect them to watch a few videos and read a few articles and then go and start giving advice to people, right? You would expect that they've gone to learn from somebody that's an expert. College, university, they all have teachers, tutors. There's always an expert that has the time and the ability to teach. And that's what I'd be doing right out the gate.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, of course I agree with you, because you're the one who knows. I don't need to agree with you, but I've noticed it even myself in my own modest way. I fortunately didn't get into debt the way you did, but looking back, I think I wasted so much money. It's trying to save money, and that's the irony, isn't it? Is that people think, well, I don't, and actually, if they invested, it doesn't have to be, it's not, we're talking a lot less money than if we were opening a shop on the high street. But as you say, having mentorship is just, it just changes everything, doesn't it? And so I'm so glad that you're sharing this.
And the time is the important thing. Time is the big thing. I've made that money. I lost $60,000, and perhaps I had to do that to get where I am. I don't begrudge that at all. I've made that money back 20 times over. But what I can never get back is the ages of 18 to 22, where I missed out on growing up as a teenager in my early 20s, where I didn't get to have the fun that my friends were having because I was in a bedroom scared, trying to figure out how to clear my debts. I can never get that back. I can't hit rewind. I can't say, oh, I've made my money now. Can I go back and enjoy my early 20s again? That time's gone. And obviously, as I've started getting older and maturing in life, the one thing that I do realize is that's the one thing we can't get back. And I know it can be scary to spend money, especially when you're talking a significant sum of money. But you know what? Money comes and goes. At the end of the month or the end of the 2 weeks, your paycheck's going to arrive again in your bank, and you're going to be able to put food on the table, pay your bills, pay your rent, pay your mortgage, but you can never get the time back. So that to me is the big thing these days. If a bit of money can save me a bit of time, then there's no comparison.
Absolutely, you're so right. And I mean, I'm a lot older than you are. You know, at 51 years old, I realize even more acutely that time goes, and as you say, it just never comes back. And whereas money can always be made, you know, and so you're so right. So thank you so much for sharing this. Honestly, Dean, this is absolutely wonderful. So, Dean, I have one more question for you. Why do you still do what you do? I mean, you know, you've made money. I'm guessing that you could now relax, and yet you're super active and you're improving. I mean, I certainly know that with internet profits, you're constantly bringing in new amazing changes and making it better and helping all of us. What drives you? Why do you still continue?
It's a good question. It's one I keep asking myself, like, what am I doing? But no, in all seriousness, you know, a day has not gone by yet where, you know, I haven't woke up and thought, I don't want to do this. You know, I truly, truly love what I do. And, you know, there's that famous sort of expression, isn't there, that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I feel that I'm truly privileged in that sense, that I've been able to find something that I really, really enjoy. You know, and that's not to say, you know, I'm a realist as well. That's not to say I don't have bad days, or there aren't days where I think, oh, no, I could do without that today. Or, oh, no, you know, oh, my friends are doing something. Why don't I go and do that instead? Or, you know, things like this. But the truth is, I love what I do. You know, I truly, truly am fascinated still to this day, after all these years. I'm fascinated that, you know, not just me, but that anybody can turn on the computer and have the ability to make an income. And I know that's oversimplifying it, right? And especially if there's anyone listening that's, you know, struggling and not getting anywhere, just like I once was. But, you know, if anything's, if I've learned anything over the years, it's that usually we're closer than we think, and we just might not know it yet. You know, and it's this drive to still help people. You know, a lot of people, admittedly, I will say, I don't necessarily talk about this, but I've realized over the years, a lot of people honestly don't like working with what you might term as beginners. You know, and that's the cold, hard truth. And I can tell you why it happens. It's because, you know, say people, they reach a certain level of success and money in their life, and you know, admittedly, I'll be the first to say, because I've spent half of my life doing it, you know, that it's very difficult to help somebody that currently doesn't know anything about anything, you know, and to take that person that's a complete beginner or completely struggling as I was. And so sadly, I see that a lot of guru type people, they reach a level of success and they kind of say, you know what, I'm wiping my hands of that. I'm going to just, you know, move in this direction. And that's why you generally, if you look at some of the, you know, most successful people in this space, you'll notice that typically their efforts are aimed at people that are already successful. Yes. You know, they work with people that already have a level of success. Whereas like you mentioned early on, you know, I know what it's like to be stuck and to be struggling. I have stayed in touch with that and in tune with that, because the reason I started even helping people, or even why I wrote that in my first blog post, you know, before I'd even made $1 online, I was saying I want to be able to help others. And the reason that stayed with me, and the reason I continue to do so, is that I remember just how tough and how terrifying that is. You know, still to this day, I'll occasionally, you know, a lot of people will fill in an application to work with me and my team. And I'll sometimes have those calls myself, just so I can speak to people that, you know, are in that position. I had a wonderful call just 2 weeks ago. You know, I phoned a lady who'd applied for our program, and she was in floods of tears on the phone to me, explaining her situation. And that's why I still do this. For the person that's sitting at home thinking that they're not good enough, or that they'll never do it, or that nobody's hearing them, or no one's around for them. That's the person that gets me up every day, to know that actually on the other side of the computer of what I sit here and do, there's not just people throwing money at me. There's real human beings that are going through something in their life. Because I don't believe anybody, you know, you don't generally turn to the internet in pursuit of this because life's great. You generally turn to doing this because something's not great. I'm not saying people hate their life. Some people do. And some people are in dire situations. And I have never taken for granted, after all these years, I've never taken for granted. When I even see somebody spend $7 to pay the shipping to order my book, I don't see that and just think, oh, great, more money for me. I think, wow, I wonder who's going to read these pages. I think, wow, I wonder where this book's going to end up. I wonder what coffee table this is going to be sat on one day. You know, I wonder what's going to happen to the person that picks up and reads the pages of this book. I wonder if I'll ever meet them. I wonder what their story is going to be. You know, to me, we're all, I think a lot of people dehumanize things and they see numbers on a screen and it's all digital and this and that. And I constantly like to remind myself that I'm a real human being. You're a real human being. And every time I see $1 show up in my bank account, that's because somewhere, someone else decided to put their trust and faith in me to share something with them that can help improve their life. And that to me is worth carrying on for. You know, I can't imagine any better way to live than to know that what I do every day is helping somebody. And what better thing to do than to wake up every day. You know, I don't wake up to an alarm typically. I wake up when I want to wake up, which generally is very early, to be honest. You know, I'm generally up and out the door by 6:30 in the morning. I come to my office, which is my own place. I have my own office now. I get to come here and I get to do the work that I know can make a difference. And, you know, I don't have to do it. I could work, you know, sure, I've got things to do, but I could spend maybe 2 or 3 hours a day and be gone. I sit here for sometimes 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and I still leave with the energy because I enjoy this. And despite the hard days, despite the ups and downs, because they're always there, why wouldn't I keep doing this? I suppose, why not? You know, what a great thing to be able to do. And so I know that's quite a long answer, but
no, but I think it's a wonderful answer, Dean, and thank you. And I feel this as one of your students, as a member of the community. And, you know, we had this 3-day mastermind. I'm getting to know you a lot better, I guess, over the months. And I can feel this, you know, I can really feel that you love what you do. And I love that you have this care for the beginner. There's definitely something very unique about being in your community. And I really personally think it's because you're still very much in touch with this bit of you that struggled. So you know how it is to be in various stages of the journey. I mean, I'm not in that stage where I'm struggling anymore, but I'm kind of not where I'm at yet, you know, and there's all kinds of us in the community. And I think this is absolutely fantastic. And I think this love that you have for what you do is not, it's got to be there or it's not. You can't just fake it, can you? I mean, it's
exactly. And one thing, if you don't mind, you know, sorry to take up too much time, but one thing I would like to point out, because again, I always remember how I used to feel, and I know I felt very differently and had a very different perspective back then as I do now. And so I always like to point certain things out, because somebody might be listening to this, or many people, and they're in a situation like I once was, where I was stuck and struggling and everything felt impossible and overwhelming and confusing and frustrating. And, you know, you're full of so many fears and doubts, and you're your own worst critic constantly, and you're questioning yourself all the time. And I want everybody to know that the answer I just gave there, and about the details of why I keep doing this, that wasn't what drove me at the beginning. I didn't feel passionate about this at the beginning. It wasn't like, oh, I love what I do. You know, I'll be brutally honest, and sometimes people get surprised by this. I wasn't thinking about, you know, when I started, I wasn't thinking about how I can add value to other people. I wasn't thinking about building a business. You know, the fact I'm sitting in an office, I have employees and things like this now. I wasn't thinking about anything. That wasn't even on my scope of thought. It literally was, as I said earlier, I'm not making much money. My friends are having more fun than I am. I don't like this. How do I make some more money? That was how I began, you know, and I actually stand by that to this day, that I feel that there has to be an element of selfishness to some degree at the beginning, you know. And the analogy that I always like to give is that, you know, if anyone can remember the last time they were on a plane, I recently had a vacation after years of the whole situation we've all gone through. So this is very evident in my mind. But you get onto the plane, right? And you sit down, you fasten your seat belts, the air stewardesses and whatever come around and check. And then they say, can you just pay attention for 3 minutes while you watch the safety briefing? And as a part of that safety briefing, one of the things it tells you is, in the event of emergency, the oxygen will fall down or be deployed from above you. Before you help anybody else, you must first attach your own mask before even helping your own children. Now, a lot of parents, I'm sure, I'm not a parent myself, but I could imagine you've got a young child sat next to you. Your instinct is not going to be about yourself. It's going to be to help that little human being next to you or to help others around you. But there's a very specific reason they tell you to do that. And quite frankly, that's because if oxygen is reduced within the cabin and you haven't fitted that, not only will you not be okay, you won't be able to help anybody else around you. Exactly. And that's what I always think about starting out online is that, look, you're going to hear a lot of people that are further along in the journey talking about things, how it's all about the impact you can make for others and the legacy you can build and all these great, great things. But I want to just remind everybody that it's okay saying that when you've got your basic needs taken care of, when you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay the bills, when you don't have to think about how am I going to afford my children's education as they grow up, when you don't have to worry about those things anymore, then it's obviously much more viable to start considering how valiant of a savior you can be to the rest of the world, right? And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I just really want everybody to know and not feel like they're not good enough because they don't feel the same way as this guru's talking about, because they've gone through that phase. And I truly believe that what people need to be centered on at first is themselves. Figure out how to get your own basic needs met. You know, get the help, like I mentioned earlier, and focus on you and how you can improve your own situation. And the type of stuff that I talk about today and the way I feel about today, why I keep going, is very different to why I got going in the first place. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. And I think that most of us do start like that, right? I mean, I remember thinking I'm just fed up worrying because one of my children has a dentist appointment, you know, and you know, I can afford the basics, but anything extra is a real pain. And that's what motivated me in the first place. You're absolutely right. And the discovery that I love helping others and I want to make a difference and all that stuff sort of came later. But yes, I think it's a good thing to say and tell people that that's okay, you know, and don't feel guilty about this. Yes.
Absolutely. And just so that's not mistaken, obviously, if you recall in my first blog post, when I was still struggling, I said, I want to help others. So I'm not saying it's wrong or you shouldn't have that kind of drive, you know, but I sometimes just worry that sometimes people will listen to people that are, you know, they've made millions and you hear people talk about, oh, it's all about, you know, it's not about me, it's about everybody else. And yes, there's always an element of that. But I just I want to, I guess, empower people to realize that at first it's perfectly okay for it to be about you and your family and improving your own situation. Yeah. And then in future, you can be more about everybody else, I'm sure. But just don't think that you can't be that way. A lot of people say, oh, that's selfish, that's wrong, that's not what others are saying. And I actually think, no, there's an element here where you have to think that way at first, because it is about you and it is about you learning and you improving and gaining the confidence and the ability. And that will then form and that will then grow and a lot of great things will happen. You know, I could have never predicted being here in this situation all those years back, not a clue, you know, but things just naturally happen.
It's amazing. It's fantastic. And it's so inspirational. And again, I want to remind my viewers, if you want to learn from Dean himself, the first step to getting into Dean's world is clicking the link below and getting the book, the free book. You just pay for the shipping. And just the link is just below this video. So it's thank you so much, Dean. I think for me, I could speak with you for hours and hours, of course, but you know, in a nutshell, that's really what the essentials that I wanted to ask you. And I can't thank you enough for being here with me today and sharing all this with me and my audience and all the future audience that's going to join my little world.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. No, well, thank you so much. As you might tell, I don't dislike talking these days, so I'm more than happy to do something like this. And thank you for the opportunity to do so. And you know, I think even if one person, if anything that we've said here, this, you know, resonates or, rings true, then I want to encourage everybody. I mean, it's lovely that you've recommended my book there, but even at very least, I would just encourage everybody, because I've had the privilege of getting to know you. It's not one-sided. I've got to know you, and I've got to bear witness to the growth and the commitment that you show. And I think if anybody is going to listen to somebody that's, in that earlier stage of their journey and is figuring things out and making tremendous progress, and somebody that's just so willing to openly share, you are that person. So there's another link below this video as well. It says subscribe, doesn't it? And so, somebody's watching this, I really encourage them to follow you, because I'm telling all of my clients, as you'll know, I say, keep your eye on Sophie. She's a role model of how you should do things. You are somebody that you don't just try it once and then give up because you didn't make lots of money in an instant. You have perseverance and you have that commitment. And that, as much as, sometimes people say, oh, if you just teach me to get traffic, then I'll make lots of money. And it goes way beyond just learning the things that you have to do. There's so much more to this. And a lot of it is in that mentality and that commitment and that internal part of things. And you've just been such an inspiration and a role model to everybody in our community, in my world, even to the team. I can't tell you how often your name comes up in our private team meetings as a company, and so I just, want to say thank you to you for being that role model and being that inspiration to everybody here. And, like I say, to anybody that's actually watching this, what a great person to follow that you found here.
Oh, thank you so much, Dean. I mean, I'm so honored. And I have to say, I've just found, with this community, I'm home now. It's just wonderful. And for somebody like me who's so busy and really needs to, I do things, I take action, I'm consistent. But it's true at times when you don't have true mentorship, it's difficult, as you were saying, because there's so many conflicting things that are said and really, with Internet Profits, with you and the team, it's fantastic. It's made easy in a way, because if I'm stuck, I ask a question, I take action on that, on what I'm told, and I move on and I can ask another question. So it makes it easy, but really, yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. I'm really, really honored to get these compliments from someone like you, I have to say.
Well, it's all very, very true. And, one thing I will promise to your audience is, if they ever do continue to be in our world, I promise you, I don't wear shirts like this all the time.
I love that.
I've just come back on vacation and I'm still in holiday mode, but I promise I won't subject anybody to these shirts too often.
I love it. I think we're all in the middle of a heat wave in this hemisphere, right? So we have to be summery.
True.
Listen, Dean, thank you so much. And thank you so much.
No, thank you.
I'm speechless. Wasn't that amazing? As I said in the video, if you want to learn from Dean Holland himself, simply click the first link in the description below this video to get his free book. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my content. If you have any questions about making money online, about affiliate marketing, or about Dean Holland and Internet Profits, please post your question in a comment below this video. It will be a pleasure for me to answer it, get back to you, and maybe, who knows, even make a video for you. If you enjoyed this video, my guess is you will enjoy this one next. Thank you so much for watching. See you in another video. Bye for now.